website. Great. So without further ado, I would ask for if anybody wishes to speak to the board at privilege of the floor. You can raise your blue Zoom hand.
Which you can access through reactions at the bottom right of your screen.
Yeah. I'm gonna just read. Okay, if I see no hands, is that correct?
Right.
So without further ado, Justices Barr and Reinbold now wish to make a presentation to the board. So we'll unmute the justices and hear their presentation.
So can I have access to post PDFs?
To share your screen?
Right.
Hang on, I'm getting there. I think you should have sharing ability now, Susan.
So, for example, so here's a slide. Where does it go? Share. Oh, I see. So I'm not sure what to do.
Susan, you push share screen at the bottom of panel.
Did-
It should be a
did that.
green,
Did that?
and it should ask you which window on your screen you want to share, and you click on that window and it should come up. You should have the window open.
It's
Yeah, you
open.
need to. Correct.
It's open.
Then when you choose share screen, that window should appear as one of the open windows that you can click on.
So I got a security and privacy note. Okay, so I have it open. I click on it. Sorry, I've never done this before.
Progress.
So once you open it, then you should go to the share screen option in Zoom.
Right,
Okay.
did that. And I've got a PDF. I thought I was gonna slide it on, but that's not true, huh?
I don't think so. I think, yeah, it's an open window that you choose.
Yeah, then it opens sorry. Then it's opening system preferences. And I'm not sure where to go from here.
Yeah, That doesn't sound right. When you did the share screen option, goes to
Yeah, I
system.
got a security and privacy notice. So, Judge Reinbold, can you find out, can you do these? He also has a Mac. Sorry, I thought I was gonna drop it in. I've never done this.
If you want to send me the PowerPoint and Mark gives me screen share, I can do the tech on it for you if that would help things out.
All right,
For
let's do
everybody.
that. Yeah, let's do that. Sending it to your work account?
Yeah, town email's fine.
Yeah. Well, this computer doesn't know that. Let me see. Okay, and your email is, say it to me, Frecia? Is it John
Try that again.
Frecia? I
It's
don't
John.
have it in, I'm on
That's
my home
okay.
computer.
No worries. It's John_Frecia at townofcaroline.org. I also put it in the chat for you.
Town of Caroline, all one word,
Yep, that's correct. And then it's .org.
right? Okay. Sorry about the slowdown. See it yet, John?
Not yet, but it sometimes takes a minute or
It's
two.
12 slides, so
Yeah,
I'm
Should-
checking the
should
chat.
be here momentarily. Yep.
Oh no, I didn't put an H in there. I'll do it again.
That is the most frequently dropped letter, so no worries.
Yeah, if you care.
Okay, send it again. Oh dear, I need power. Let me get my cord.
All right, got them.
Got it. All right, so number
Yep.
one.
Yeah, give me a moment. Let me just download them and
That's okay. So I'll go ahead and start. So I apologize for the delay. So Judge Reinbold and I had a 20-minute presentation. We've kind of pared it down to 17. I'm going to talk a little fast right at the beginning, but these are all just kind of history and facts. And I just kind of run through some background information. I spoke to the town board last time. I presented some caseload stories. And my point of these stories was to show that there are things that are going on in court that are not, you have to choose what's important. So are you saying that treating people with dignity is important? Are you saying that considering socioeconomic aspects of bail and jail are important? And I gave an example of a time when a judge found someone innocent of something, not guilty, and then their caseload dropped significantly because the law enforcement was upset with that not guilty finding. And so, in fact, when you are stressing caseload, you are saying that these other aspects are not important. And you can't, have both. Do you want caseload or do you want dignity? Go to the next one, please. You're looking for dignity. Should we hurry and find people guilty so we have a bigger caseload? Referring people to probation and drug court takes time. It's a different thing. It lowers our caseload. Is that good or is it bad? Are adjournments slow things down? Are you saying go fast? And you have to remember in the back of our heads, if you keep emphasizing caseload, 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 you're actually acting against justice and you're telling us that dignity is not important. Next one, please. I sent this as an email to the town board. These are just some things, ways to measure our success. And 70% of our time is building the foundation of the court and having the knowledge so that we can run the court. Next one, please. There was a conflict between the town supervisor and the board and the court. The supervisor was insistent that we have more clerk open window hours. And we were trying to explain how, counting money is part of her job and that door should be locked during that time. And he was really quite insistent. This actually went on for 3 years, but we brought in someone from the 6th Judicial District, and he was explaining the benchmarks that the 6th District has for how they measure if it's a successful court. And he was talking about getting our money right, getting our comptroller reports right, completing our education requirements, abiding by the ethics requirements, getting our reports done, getting our court done. And that is their benchmarks. And by their benchmarks, we are a successful court. He also said at that meeting with the town board that we have above average number of open window hours. And so it is fine and sufficient what's going on in this court. And basically told the superintendent that the supervisor, that he doesn't have the authority to make demands on the court. Next one, please. So now I'm going to give a historical example. I think everyone's familiar with what happened in Ferguson, Missouri. I'm going to be speaking to the findings of the federal government when they did a review of what happened in Ferguson and what led to all the problems there. This should be number 4, Mr. Fraser.
I think it's not a PDF, so I think that's why it's
Oh,
not
it's a
showing.
JPEG. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's just a picture. I'll just keep
Yeah.
talking. Yeah, I was just trying to
Okay.
be illustrative. Yes.
Yep.
And I think it's well known that the police, it was a finding of the federal government that the police were routinely and out of proportion of the population pulling over poor people and particularly pulling over Black men for minor violations. So that's one thing that's wrong. The second thing that was wrong is there was a finding, again, federal government finding, that the police were deliberately escalating situations, getting in people's face, putting their fingers on their chest. And if the drivers objected, they'd arrest them for resisting arrest. And it was a problem. I think everyone's familiar with this. But what the justice courts recognized immediately, sitting here in New York, is that the court in Ferguson was enmeshed with the police, because police can't put people in jail, police can't set bail, that's judges. And in fact, it was a finding of the federal government that the courts in Ferguson were setting excess fines And they were they had a paupers prison. They kept people in prison for failure to pay, which is against the law in the United States. You can't do that. And in fact, the justice courts were a major source of revenue for the town of Ferguson. And we have to ask if they were being rewarded for bringing in more revenue. And this is just another example that it's illegal to tempt judges. When you wave money in front of people, they might respond in ways that's poison. My next example is from the Fugitive Slave Act. Again, this is something everyone's familiar with. The southern states, in their zeal for states' rights, forced northern states to open court and to consider cases of returning people accused of being escaped slaves. And in this system that was a federal law, that once you were accused of being an escaped slave, you were no longer considered a human being and you didn't have a right to mount a defense. So they couldn't speak in their own behalf. And it was an immediate court and there wasn't time to call witnesses. So what was really egregious about this system is that the pay from the federal government was $350 if the judge found, so this would be number 6. The judge found, oh, that's another JPEG.
It is, yeah.
Okay. It was $350 if
switch
the
it.
judge found the person to be a slave, and they were only paid $175 if they freed the accused. And again, you're waiving money in front of a judge. And as a result, they bent justice with this unequal pay structure. And the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania was perplexed, but they passed a law that they said that any police officer, any officer of the law that was engaged in chasing or accompanying slaves, guarding an escaped slave, someone accused of being an escaped slave, was no longer under the pay of the town or the state, and that they should seek pay for the day from the federal government. So in fact, they docked an entire day's pay if they spent any time on this slavery issue. So they waived money in front of the judges and they got all these guilty verdicts, and they took the money away from the police officers, and the police officers stopped bringing people to court, and the cases ended in Pennsylvania. And again, this shows the poison of connecting money, which is caseload, and it perverts justice. Now some history. So there's been acrimony with the court and the superintendent for quite some time. When he first took office, he called me on a Friday and he had somebody on the phone who wanted us to open the court because she had a traffic ticket that she wanted to be resolved that afternoon. And I explained to the superintendent that we don't open on demand, that the court is in fact a triangle. There's the defendant, there's the judge, but then there's also the prosecution. There's 3 parties. And if I open court, we'd be missing one of the parties and it's not a true court. And also I'm quite limited what I can do with the prosecution, the people of New York absent from the court. I'm quite limited what I can do. But superintendent was quite insistent. And I also explained that if you're about to be scoffed, you've ignored 6 letters. I mean, we really make a strong effort to contact people. So I said, okay, I will open the court, but I need you to stay in the court so I can teach you why this is not a good idea. And in fact, this particular driver had a ticket for 75 and a 45. She already had 8 traffic points. She had 3 outstanding tickets. One of them was for 80 and going 80. And it was clear that there was nothing I could do for this driver. And it was futile to open court. And we do not open on demand. We are not a place that you can just knock on the door and say, right now it's convenient for me. We have hours. We have people that need to be present in court. But this is something, and again, Mr. Whitmer continued pressing this for quite some time. He tried to have staff meetings and call the judges to staff meetings. And we explained that we are a separate entity. We are not part of the executive branch of the government. And in fact, it's unethical for us to attend staff meetings. He harassed us about increasing our window hours, and he just would not let go of this. And this is why we had to bring in the representative from 6th District. He harassed our clerk, this is not her problem. He shouldn't have been doing that. When the federal government passed new privacy laws concerning records, and then we had to seal the record room and make it a restricted area for court officers only, The superintendent strongly resisted this. It was a very difficult 4 months, maybe 6. It was a long time. And finally, he did change the lock on one of the doors. When I asked him about the other door, he kind of mumbled that he didn't have a key. But it was acrimonious. It was a simple thing. The law changed. We have to change the locks, but it was extremely acrimonious to do this simple thing with the superintendent. He's brought up more hours again and again, and now he's focused on caseload. It's a laser thing, and he's just this is all he's interested right now is caseload. So there is an unending push from the superintendent to gain control of the court, to dictate our hours. And we have taken an oath. We are a separate branch of the government. We remain separate, and it's the duty of the judges to stand up and decline these illegal requests. I just want to mention as an aside, we also had a problem with a council person who's no longer on the town council, Councilperson Weiser. She sent me an email that I thought was blunt, and then I responded, I didn't understand it. And then she wrote something I thought was quite rude. And then she called my clerk, and she lied to my clerk in order to attempt to gain information. And I was unhappy with all of this. So I went over to the town hall to discuss this with the supervisor. How are we going to smooth this over? We have a problem. There's acrimony. What are we going to do? And I was looking to resolve this problem, but the supervisor just turned red. He shouted at me. His face was 10 inches from my face. He waved papers in my face. And I thought, wow, this caseload thing is just blown way out of proportion. I don't even understand what's going on. But then I went to Councilperson Murray, but he kind of concurred that a council person could be rude. And I will say, I didn't use the word lie with him. I said that maybe she was in a hurry and that she said things that were untrue. I was trying to give her some room there. But basically, he concurred with rude behavior and did not stand up for decorum and for truth. And now I'm at a loss. And this is why Judge Reinbold and I are here today, because we feel like we don't even know what to do next. There's increasing rancor. The court officers are blamed for failure to concede with what we view as illegal requests. In fact, our job has increased 50% in time requirements. This is statewide. Judges are resigning throughout the 6th district. And I do want to go to slide 8. The supervisor is earning an average salary. And if he earns an average salary, that tells me that Caroline's an average town. And I am at a loss to understand why he denies us the average salary that he pays himself. I concur with Judge Reinbold. The superintendent harbors irrational anger, and I ask him to recuse himself from future salary considerations. The past 5 years have been demoralizing. Our professionalism and our dedication are not respected. I feel harassed. Judge Reinbold. Mute.
Okay, I don't have any graphics. I just have a tale to tell, and it's a recapitulation of things I have said before. But I feel that there has been no response to my prior statements, so I will repeat them again at the cost of perhaps being repetitive. First, I'd like to make a general statement that tonight I will be using language that addresses the town board as if it were one thing. Now, I understand that it's not monolithic, and there are those on the board who may be sympathetic to the judge's willingness to stand on ethics. But when you act as a unit and issue opinions as a unit, and therefore I will address you all as a single unit, sadly not based on the behavior of the best of you, but on the behavior of the worst of you. For 3 years, the judges have been asking for a salary increase to reflect the fact that the nature of the job has become much more demanding in training and execution than it was when the salary level was first determined. For 3 years, the judges have determined the model that the town of Caroline has chosen to compensate the judges, that is the number of cases the judges process annually, is both unethical and illegal. In fact, I wrote an opinion of why it is unethical and illegal to link a judge's decisions to his level of compensation, but to no avail. If you were a defendant, for example, would you want a judge to consider how his actions regarding your case will affect his income? The Caroline judges have steadfastly refused to provide a case count because it will be used in an unethical process, and that has cost them any consideration for a pay increase. The liaison from the town court this very year stated that the judges will be considered, not granted an increase, but considered if they provide the case count, despite the opinion from the bench showing it to be unethical to do so. There are many problems in the relationship between the court and the town, mostly stemming from the clear and demonstrable animus the town holds toward its own court. Judge Barr has outlined many of them. Perhaps most disturbing is the annual adventure of the judges appearing before the board and forced to demonstrate why they are not just picking the taxpayers' pockets every 2 weeks. This pervasive undermining, threats, and diminishing of the judges' roles should be sufficient to demonstrate hostility on the part of the town, but the final straw that initially this meeting was supposed to be a standalone public hearing in which the judges were called before the town board to answer to the town's retained counsel. Anyone who knows anything about the law would understand that the minute you bring in retained counsel into a conflict, the conversation remains cordial, but the relationship is inherently and by design adversarial. That's how courts work. So much for the nature of the relationship. It is toxic, but not due to any behavior on the part of the judges. I have been asking questions for 3 years, none of which have been answered, so I am still here asking basic questions. And tonight, I have only 3. So my first question is, why have the judges repeatedly been brought forth to answer questions to determine if they are worthy of equitable compensation, as if the town is doing them a favor by paying them? Second, why has the mere act of asking for a raise become a reason for an inquiry through paid representation? And my final question is, why does the town board find it so distressing to have judges that have ethics and act on them? Why are the judges being denied a pay raise because they have chosen to act ethically? I have been continuously employed since I was 11 years old, starting with my paper route. In all that time, I have never been so thoroughly dismissed, disregarded, and disrespected merely for asking for a pay increase. The court is a constitutionally mandated activity of the town, and for the board to take the position that the judges need to appear as supplicants begging for the favor of equitable compensation from their betters is and continues to be appalling. So there are 3 questions here that I would like to see answered in writing. It doesn't seem that much to ask, but then again, asking for a raise equivalent to the average salary of a judge in Tompkins County didn't seem that much to ask either. But apparently it was a major transgression and has been treated by the board as such. Thank you for your time. I leave you now to consider these requests and consider your answer, which I again requested right.
So Mr. Frazier, slide 9, please. So we asked that the towns, I've raised some serious ethical issues. I'm concerned about speaking truth and using polite behavior. So I'm asking for the town board to issue a statement on ethics and polite behavior as the norm. Next slide. We also are asking that the town board replace our liaison. He has actually threatened us, and I think it would be better to have a different liaison working with us. Next one. We're asking that you consider back just pay. We don't even get living wages right now. We're asking for the average salary in the county, which is the way we did it. We took out the city of Ithaca, or took out the town of Ithaca from all the towns for $18,000. And we're also suggesting that we remove caseload from the table in 2021 and 2022 because it has become just a laser acrimonious issue. And the final request is that the town board address this issue of the supervisor's behavior. So I talked about the records room had to become a secure area and it had to be restricted to court officers.
Anything could go wrong, it did.
And but the supervisor has admitted to possessing an illegal key and illegally entering the room. And I don't know. I mean, he lied to me about the key. he entered in a restricted area, and that's a misdemeanor offense. We take law seriously, and I think he could spin a tale about why he has a key when in fact, because we went through this long torturous process to lock the room, he knew very well he wasn't supposed to have a key, and he knew very well he should not enter the room. So either the supervisor is responsible for an intentional breach of law, or as a sworn town officer, this was irresponsible behavior. Judge Keene chose not to, out of professional courtesy, not to have him arrested, but this is something the town board needs to consider. I'm still upset with the shout and the lies and now this illegal entry issue. So we're gonna leave you to consider this. And I think it would be appropriate for our Judge Reinbold and I to leave at this point.
Thank you, Susan and Gary. I do want to make a point that the town board has been seriously considering your request for a raise starting 2 years ago. And we did grant an initial 20% $2,000 raise in the absence of information that we considered necessary to doing that in an objective and fair manner. And we've moved forward from that point to seek in a collegial way the information that we are requesting in order to make an objective evaluation of court needs so that we can properly budget. I also want to formally, for the record, object to the accusations you made tonight towards me, many of which are absolutely false. And I hope that we can return to a collegial working relationship where we work together for the interests of the town and its taxpayers. And as you know, we have a shared space here at the historic town hall that we need to work together to use in a constructive and amicable way. So I will leave it at that.
Mark, I would just like to add to the public that this past year, the town board voted to provide no salary increases to any non-union employee out of respect to the instability of the budget around COVID. So there were absolutely no increases last year. And I will say for the public record that I'm rather surprised to learn that I've threatened, that it said that I threatened the judges. Of my few communications with them are in writing. They've all been shared with the town board. That they can be part of the public record. And that's all I have to say.
Okay.
May I add briefly, I guess, as the newest board member, I have expressed concern about what I've learned about this. That's also on public record. People can view the recording of the last meeting when this all was discussed, but I guess I will reiterate and repeat my requests and query from last time, which is that I am hearing a lot of emotion and I am not hearing a lot of substance. And I still do not fully understand what the request is in terms of salary. So if there is a specific request, like I'm still would be happy to learn of that. I know the justices are no longer on this call, but I just want to add that. I'm not hearing a specific request.
I think there was a lot of information to process, but I think the last slide they had did have a specific number in it, and I can share those out with everybody.
The 18,000, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I believe so. I don't have it open in front of me, but that's my recollection.
I stand corrected, that was requested.
Like I said, there was a lot of information in that.
So we did invite the town attorney to join us tonight. And I would like to ask if he could provide any information about the appropriateness of using caseload information for evaluating court needs and the management of shared spaces. And many small towns have shared spaces that they use with their courts. So I don't know if he wants to speak, but I would give him the opportunity if he has any.
Well, can you hear me?
I hear you, Guy. Yes.
Okay, all right. So a few things. One, I have to say, I find it, I don't know if the word is shocking or insulting that the town of Caroline was compared to a highly charged problem in Missouri or the Fugitive Slave Act. I don't understand how you ask about resource allocation, which is part of mandated reporting and auditing to the town board under state law and according to comptroller's requirements. I would point to Appendix F, which says courts should provide all this information to town boards. How that is somehow equating to we will only pay you if you convict. So since there's not a direct logical connection with those two, and since that connection has nonetheless been made by some people who have listened to this, I'm trying to figure out how you get from point A to point B. Nobody's asking what the conviction rate is or what the holding was on a particular case or that a sealed record be opened. It's, how often are you in court? How many cases do you have? How many of them are vehicle and traffic? How many are crimes? How many are civil? How many landlord tenants? How could you allocate resources for any town department without having the basic nuts and bolts of what their needs are? So to the extent that there is that I heard a lot of words like illegal and misdemeanor and unethical and frankly words that are probably even more directly fighting words than those bandied about. And I'll echo what one of your board members said. I'm hearing a lot of motion, but not of a lot of substance. State archival rules don't really agree with some of what was said, or at least some of how what was said was expressed. I would be curious to see what federal law changed that said that nobody's allowed to go anywhere near court records, since most record storage spaces under New York State archival rules are shared. And since the law is very clear that if a judge were to retire, their obligation is to turn their files and records over to the town clerk. That's a New York statute. I'm not making this up. That's how the law is written. So something is occurring that is unrelated to the law, or some aspect of the law is being drilled down in great detail and perhaps being oversimplified or over-applied. But I'm not passing judgment because I haven't examined whatever federal law that might be. I did look at state law. I did look at mandatory auditing requirements under state law. I did look at the comptroller's rules for auditing and the sample questionnaire that they provide on the general ground book for fiscal oversight for towns. And I did look at some of the state archive rules, and I won't admit to being an expert on any of these things, but I'm not seeing that the requests that I'm aware of, there may have been requests that I'm not aware of in full fairness, somehow translate to the judge's pay being tied to them achieving a conviction rate or generating cash. The Fugitive Slave Act reference and some of the other cases that are, let's just say there are cases that are far more analogous. For example, several municipalities in New York used to pay parking ticket officers, what were euphemistically once called meter maids, based upon the number of tickets they wrote, quota systems, as we all know. And quota systems have been made illegal because they encourage the writing of tickets and encourage people to write tickets that may not necessarily be valid. And while you generally can assume that most traffic or parking control officers are honorable people that take their job and their badge seriously, every barrel's got one bad apple. And what they found is that incentivizing volume-based ticket writing was not legal, that quota systems did not follow the basic mandates of due process. And I think that sort of mindset is being equated to requesting resource information and allocation data so that you can properly fund the courts, whether it's personnel needs for salary or how much paper they go through in a month. I don't see that as a quota system. I see that as day-to-day governmental management information. So something happened that can't be explained by the questions that I have seen, and I can't get to the presentation that I just watched based upon those questions. So I'm not sure what that is, and I'm not sure I can adequately address personnel issues or that level of emotion. That's not really my job, and I might suggest you consider, a labor consultant or a CDRC or some sort of mediation where this can get into a format with someone who has, experience and expertise dealing with the issues that don't relate to the town. What I would want to know is, what is this federal law and what specific misdemeanor crime allegedly occurred by storing light bulbs in a town-owned storage room? And I should also point out that one of the things that you're mandated to provide for your courtrooms is, for example, cleaning services. You're supposed to regularly clean the courts so they're safe and sanitary, including all of their offices and all of their storage areas. Well, if no one's allowed in the storage area, then that's a pretty strange requirement of law that somehow you have to pay someone to clean a room that they can't get access to. So I don't know, maybe they're going to clean it themselves. I guess we'll find out. So there's a lot of places where what I've heard and what state law is don't connect. And if there's a federal law that overrides it all, I guess I would ask, what is that federal law? Let me see it. I want to read it. I would also recommend perhaps if you want me to do any work at all, I could try to call the 6th Judicial District Attorney and try to see what the answer might be to a differently phrased question. Or I could call the state archivists because they're actually very helpful, and they'll actually come and do presentations on what are the proper rules from soup to nuts of record storage and records management, and how do you take care of different types of records. As anyone who's ever looked at the records management schedule pretty much realizes that they deal with thousands and thousands of different type of records, and court records and criminal records and juvenile records and all of the types of things that town and village justice courts deal with are under the jurisdiction of the Department of Education and the state archivist. You may have to comply with the OCA regulations for records, but you also have to comply with the regulations of state archives. And somehow not everything is lining up. Now, in New York State, that's remarkably common. So the question is, how do you resolve potential conflicts between what one law says and what another law says? Well, I think you try to do it in a civil manner that achieves the goal of each law as best you can, while recognizing that a town functions as a unit. Technically, the town clerk has a lot of independent authority over his or her office, and a town highway superintendent has a lot of independent authority over his or her office, but they too are required to be audited by the town board and to account for the town board of their personnel, their postage, their cash receipts, their caseload, their work reports. Highway superintendents, for example, have to identify their I think it's 284 agreements, what roads and what jobs they're going to do over a summer, and those have to be approved because that's what authorizes them to utilize their budget and disperse it for their various workers to get various miles of roads paved or repaired, et cetera. New York State does recognize that the town clerk is an independent public officer, but that they work with and are accountable to the town board. Same with the highway department and same with the courts. The courts are slightly different because they are an independent branch of government and there is a separation of powers issue. But it doesn't sound to me too much like you're trying to regulate or take over the courts merely by asking for the information that would justify, at least in the eyes of the public and in a tricky financial year, why 1 or 2 employees would get raises when no one else did. Usually raises are as a result of workload, seniority, longevity, certification, skills, whatever. On the flip side of it, if they're substantially below what other judges are paid based upon, what the workload is for those other judges, then they probably should get a raise. But it sounds like that has already happened and that you're still considering doing it again. So without belaboring the point, I get what was said. I don't necessarily understand the tone in which it was said. And I'm not aware that the law is so black and white that one person can automatically be declared correct on all issues and another person can automatically be declared incorrect on all issues. Because as the town board knows, I've provided specific statutes and specific references to the types of information that a town court must provide to the town board annually or on request. And from what I've seen, and again, I haven't seen all of the communications, it didn't look to me like what you were requesting was a demand for a quota system, was trying to link pay to caseload. Certainly, if a judge has 400 pending cases, there is a presumption, regardless of the balance of those cases, that they might be substantially busier than a judge that only has 20 cases. Of course, it depends on what they are. 20 antitrust cases would probably break that rule, but in justice courts, we know what we're dealing with. So I just had John ask me about a question about, I just had somebody pop up a question about Section 27 of what law?
So just to add some context, one of the things that the justices have shared is that the New York State Justice Court Manual on page 27, and I believe it's paragraph 2, talks about caseload as a metric for salary. And my reading of it is it's pretty clear that that's not okay. You didn't speak to that in some of your other comments, and it may be that this isn't something you've had a chance to look at, which is fine, but I wanted to, when you do have a chance, get your take on it. From my perspective, we're trying to figure out what is a reasonable way to determine compensation and what are things we shouldn't be looking at.
Yeah, I think, let me get to page 27, because I think I have looked at that, but I think I have on a number of occasions more or less said, where do you want me to go with this and how much research do you want me to do? Because this isn't anything that anyone knows off the top of their head. My initial reaction was to call the archivist and to call the attorney for the 6th Judicial District, because they have a separate attorney that specializes in justice courts, or the 7th District, or any of them, because the rules once you get out of downstate are all going to be different. Unequal salary reduction. Okay, so you can't pay for some, let me pull up 26, 27. Judicial compensation, okay. We have to pull that page up. So compensation and non-judicial staff may be adjusted. Compensation of justice may not be reduced during a term of office. That's generally true for all elected officials. Even for a new term of office, judicial salaries may not reduce to the point to impede effective judicial operations. Okay. These constitutional guarantees, yeah, that's to prevent the intrusion of one branch into the other. It's a separation of powers issue. If a locality reduces compensation, there must be a legitimate purpose supported by a rational basis. For example, a judge's salary may not be linked to a performance evaluation, the amount of revenue a court generates, or other factors related to the justice court. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay, well, what does understanding how many cases or how many, how many hours you're in court or what amount of resources you consume in your department, how is that related to a performance evaluation or tying salary to revenue generated by the court?
Well, I would say if you're if you're looking at caseload as a metric and you're saying to someone, well, we don't think your caseload merits an increase, then you are actually kind of tying the performance of the court to whether someone gets an increase or not.
But that's,
I-
well, you
That
can
read
argue
pretty
that
clear to
way,
me.
and-
Yeah.
And, we can say pistols at dawn, but what does it mean? But that's not a performance evaluation. A performance
If we're
evaluation,
using it,
we don't like what you're deciding as a judge. We don't like that you're not enforcing our local code, so we're dropping your pay.
right,
Or we don't like that you're not taking landlord tenant cases because we're getting a lot of complaints.
mhm.
You're basing salary upon how you believe they perform their job, but looking at what their hours are, how many cases they have, how many big cases they have, how often the district attorney is there, what resources they need to effectively do their job. The sentence before that basically says you have to provide them with the resources they need to do their job. How do you do that if you don't get the data?
So your interpretation is that that is not saying caseload is prohibited in this case, in the instance of.
I think you probably could misuse caseload information, just like you could misuse any amount of data. But the question is, do the judges or does the judicial, the lawyer for the judicial district genuinely believe that the informational request from the town was for the purposes of making an illegal or improper performance evaluation? And let's make a clear distinction between an improper procedure and an illegal act. Those are two very different things, and I didn't hear that distinction in the presentation, and it's an important distinction.
Yeah,
One
but I
is-
think that's referring to a different thing than I'm asking you about. I'm focused in more on the salary,
Okay, so,
and which I thought
Right.
was,
right,
Even if we
so,
threw out caseload, can I just say, like, even if we just said, we're not gonna look at caseload, right? Because that is clearly, I am hearing a lot of activation and concern about that. Let's just say, forget caseload for the purposes of argument here. How else, what other metrics might be appropriate? How else may we assess salary? This is the question. So even if we were to say caseload is not something we're going to look at, I need to hear more about what we are dealing with here. Like, we have population, we're not going to decide, I mean, in the town of Caroline, that the caseload for town justices is so over and beyond, different, I would imagine, unless, please chime in if anyone knows that it is. I imagine there's like some basic, work of a town justice, and it's based on a number of different things. So how can we proceed with that information?
well, not my place to speak up and say, but one place you could try to get information is you could ask the sheriff's department how many calls they respond to in Caroline. And then compare that to how many calls they respond to in Ithaca or Enfield or, whatever municipalities you want to consider adjacent or comparable in some fashion. Ithaca, because of size and the universities, is not really going to be comparable to Caroline, I wouldn't think. But maybe somewhere like Enfield would be, since they don't have a major village or population center. I think you probably have a similar number of businesses. You probably, I think Enfield might be a rational comparison. I think Newfield might, although they do have a village. But I think you can extrapolate information. How often are the police there? How many charges are filed? those are actually public statistics. In fact, the FBI keeps those statistics as well as local sheriffs. The sheriff's department looks at its caseload to understand how many deputies it needs. So I don't interpret performance evaluation to mean caseload, but I agree with the speaker that it clearly seems to be a trigger word. But I'll point out that the auditing, according to the comptroller's report, when you report to the Department of Motor Vehicles, and the comptroller's report asks you to report how many cases are shown as open and pending in the TSLE&D reports. So even the DMV and the comptroller's report that wants the town to ask, this is the form they say your justices should fill out for their audit. They ask about that. I just don't see it as a performance evaluation. But again, I'm willing to be open-minded and be educated. I'd be happy to talk to the attorney for the 6th Judicial District, or to talk to a specialist at the Office of Court Administration, where I might, but it's up to the town. I mean, I just don't make those calls and do that research without authority. But I had looked at that provision before, and I mean, I understand why people might want to look at it that way. But it says you can't do it based on a performance evaluation, the amount of revenue the courts generate, or other factors related to the operation of the justice court. These factors flow from the operation of the court itself, which is a judicial branch, and they're not a basis upon which to make that kind of determination. By contrast, the local governing board that demonstrates a financial shortfall and due to budgetary constraints by 5% the salaries of justice upon the commencement of the next terms of office can have a legitimate purpose, overall budget savings, for a reduction that is rationally supported by the proposed action of salary reductions. So it's specifically saying that you're allowed to look at your budget and understand what resources you have and how to fairly allocate them.
Right.
So I would dare say that if for whatever reason your highway department refused to tell you how many miles of road they were going to pave or how many tons of salt they need, you'd have a tough time approving a budget for them. And I really don't see at its core that this is all that much different, but clearly other people do. So the question to me is, I'm not really seeing the same legal issue as others are. I'm certainly agreeing that there's some type of personnel issue or communication problem. But whether that's something that should be further discussed in this forum is something I would probably counsel against. So if you guys have a specific questions you want answers to, I might suggest that you give them to me and let me know what amount of time or how you would like me to go about trying to find answers, because the judges did ask for some specific questions. They did ask that they want them answered. And I guess you can go about trying to provide that answer. I'm not convinced that providing the answer will change anything, but I would like to know what that federal law is and the section of law that constitutes a misdemeanor for walking into a town storage room. I'd like to know those two things.
And I'd like to remind the board that instead of having this very, very short presentation tonight, the board invited the justices to a special board meeting that we would have held at their convenience this month for 2 hours, with the plan that we had invited them to ask the attorney for the 6th Judicial District to join us. And we were then going to ask our attorney to join us so that we could have a calm and rational and reasonable discussion of these various points. And the justices frankly refused to do this. So that's where we are.
They may have been told to say no, and I doubt the 6th Judicial District attorney would appear at a town board meeting for that purpose, but who knows? I mean, they do still a function that's very different than the state archivist or the Committee on Open Government or the comptroller, or even the Department of Labor, where they will send people to you and do what you need. Another option you have is just call the state comptroller and have them come do the audit for you. If OCS wants to tell the state comptroller doesn't know what it's doing and doesn't have authority to do audits, I think they'll get an answer they might not have expected. I'm not saying that these two branches of state government are enemies, but I am saying that something here doesn't add up. I'm looking at a comptroller's form and I'm looking at a statute that says you're allowed to get this information. And for whatever reason, either there's an aspect to this I'm unaware of, there's a communication or question I haven't seen, or it's being taken in a context that I'm not convinced it's meant in, but there appears to be some basis for them to have taken offense. It appears as if they've had some issues for a long time. I'm not going to pass judgment on whether they're right or wrong. I will say that I'm not surprised they declined the meeting, Tim, because I think they probably would have been told by the 6th Judicial Department, by the attorney, and I don't think you should do that.
Okay, thank you.
But I don't know that either. But it's a great try. You're trying to find a forum and a solution that advances the ball, as opposed to, for lack of a better term, having people accuse the town of following the rules of the Fugitive Slave Act. I keep going back to that because I found it rather shocking, but
Well,
I'll
and,
let
you know,
go
I
of that
think it
today.
is shocking. And if I, again, like, I'm the newest one here. So I feel like personally really, I mean, it's offensive, to have this kind of leveraged against people who weren't even here when this was all going on, and to like be flat out told that we're a uniform, body. So I want to just say that while this is recording, so that on the record, I will share that I think the idea of a mediator is phenomenally good given where we are, because we are in a pickle. We are at an impasse. Like I do not know where to go from here. And so I guess just to say that I think that's a good suggestion. And that seems like where we might need to go. I mean, in regards to the questions that were posed by the justices, I wrote them down. And again, none of them are, they are, why do we refuse to do this? Why do we refuse to do that? Why are we behaving in a certain manner? To me, that's not a question that I really feel really needs a specific response in writing.
Well, it's also a bit of a conclusion in and of itself.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of mediators, you can go with CDRC. Sometimes when it's local government and it's that close to home, people look for other alternatives just to sort of take it out of town and get a little more objectivity, or a little less likelihood that that the back door's open and people are whispering. So there's a good organization. I think it's in Elmira. There's New Justice, which used to be known as Resolve, which is very, very strong in Syracuse. And you also have the option of bringing in someone who's sort of like specialized in labor and municipal law, retired. These guys do consulting. They come in, they do interviews, they sort of try to figure out what is the issue and how do you solve it. And they're a little more expensive because they're actually really sort of investigators. They don't take sides, they don't name names, but they do interviews and try to get to the bottom of things. But my concern would be that you just have people that would refuse to talk to them. I can't imagine, given the absolute statement of a complete separation of government between the executive, the legislative, and the judicial, that I wouldn't anticipate, though I could be wrong, that the judges would talk to an investigator that was hired by the town board to try to help solve this problem or suggest policies and procedures that might help. Yes, there is a separation between the government, but no, they are not truly independent of each other. They work together. If the judiciary isn't funded by the legislature, there's no judiciary. If the executive doesn't enforce the law, there's nothing to send to the judiciary. So, all the processes, including within the various units of government that comprise a whole of the town, you can run into these impasses, as other towns have. I mean, this is not the first time I've dealt with something like this. It's not the first time I've specifically dealt with something like this, specifically involving a court. And I'm not going to say what the other towns were, but I certainly can ask those supervisors or ex-supervisors or mayors, if they would be willing to provide insight on the experiences they had, not naming names or dates, but how did you get past this? Because some of them did solve it. Some of them didn't. They just let time heal the wound, or in one case, they just said, all right, and they just dropped to one justice. They just eliminated one of the justice positions. And it did in fact solve the problem. So I'm not sure that's a solution if the caseload requires 2 judges, but you can't get that information apparently.
Right.
So you got a bit of a chicken and an egg problem, although it's worse than that because scientifically speaking, clearly the chicken came first. But beyond that, well, I should say what came first, the chicken or the chicken egg? Chicken's a hybrid, so the chicken had to come first.
Guy, I should tell you that Catherine is a vet, so she might have an opinion on that.
Okay,
I'm going to keep my professional opinion separate from this meeting.
we'll talk about it some other time.
Appreciate your
But being a
insight.
hybrid, that's it. You couldn't have a chicken egg until there was first a chicken and it wasn't diploid or sterile or something, but that's okay.
But
So
these options are important. I mean, suffice it to say, there are 5 of us on the board. 2 of my colleagues have been called out by name in this very meeting, which makes me feel personally uncomfortable. I think it's not great. And so, that's where we are now. So we need to move forward.
well, more than 2 of your colleagues were called out, just only 2 by name. So that's okay. So I would suggest, they're asking some questions, and I think I think you can answer those questions. If you have specific questions on the law for me and how to balance what law they may be relying on with what New York State law is and what are the solutions or what are the options, I certainly can try to provide that. I'm not, I don't have a preconceived notion of whether their salaries are appropriate or whether their workload or their departmental needs or the number of hours they operate or the number of hours that they're in open session. Clearly, open session is a very small part of what a judge does. It's sort of like a police officer. It's great to watch the TV show and watch all the action and the interviews in the streets and the chases. But 80% of their job is filling out paperwork and reports, and that's pretty much also true for the judge. A lot of their work is not during court hours. So I think there are ways to try to figure out how all these different laws may best work together so that you can try to, constructively with your court find a solution. But I think it might require a mediator to get the lines of communication back open first because they do appear broken.
Yeah. Great. Well, thank you, Guy. I think we have a lot of food for thought, and I think the mediation idea is a good one. Does anyone have any final thoughts? Go ahead, Guy.
No, I was going to say it's an option, and if it doesn't work, then we can look at option B. But if it doesn't have to be tomorrow, but shoot me a list of questions, give me what amount of time or energy you want me to put into getting the answers, because you don't want to go down a rabbit hole and all of a sudden say, hey, guess what, guy spent 10 hours looking at some nuance of the judicial law. So, we'll try to figure out what's a rational amount of time and energy to devote to the problem. And I can point to what resources are available, sort of like I did earlier, Mark, on the thing where I said, well, here's a couple consultants that can help, and just get the information to you so you can at least make an informed decision about what to do with your legal budget resources.
Mm-hmm. Great. That sounds very good.
All right. Well, yeah, I was happy to be here. I certainly had other things I could have done, and I know Enfield sort of wanted me, but I had already committed to this, so I stayed where I was. And I wish you luck. I think there's a lot to deliberate about and discuss because there are clearly some valid issues that they've raised. I'm not sure I agree with the way that they were raised, but that's not my call to make. Clearly, they're very upset about something, and you might want to try to go back and figure out what that might be, because if you can find the correct thread and pull it, maybe some of this unravels and you can get back on track.
Great. Okay. Thanks so
Guy.
much. We'll be in touch.
All right, well, have a great rest of your meeting.
Likewise, have a good evening. Yeah.
Thanks, Guy.
Take care.
Frank,
Thank
do
you.
you think Frank's hand?
Mark, is this still privilege of the floor?
Hi, Frank.
Well, it's not actually, Frank. I guess if you would like to speak, I guess that's okay.
I'm sorry, I was late in tuning in for a lot of reasons, but I was wondering, since I came in on Judge Reinboldt's part of his presentation, will the minutes reflect a report or a complete report or on what they said? What
You
both judges said?
Clerk that question. So I'm sure, so the meeting will be recorded and I'm sure the minutes will be rigorous and
The minutes will be just a summary. If you want the full verbatim meeting, you'll have to watch the recording. It should be posted tomorrow, late tomorrow afternoon.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
yeah, thanks, Frank. I guess, if there anybody else wishes to address the board right now, I would entertain that. So, okay. Okay. Well, we should move on, and I will move on to my supervisor's report. And I will summarize that briefly. I did initiate the installment purchase for the 2022 snowplow or a Western Star 4900 snowplow. The LED streetlight project is apparently awaiting supply of a piece of equipment. The BrightNet LED bulb distribution is winding down and we're trying to close that out and finish that in the next, we need to finish that in the next 6 months or so. I finished the annual MS4 report and submitted that to Angel Heinickel for our Stormwater Coalition responsibilities. And I am working with other supervisors and planners on the easement agreement for use of the NYSEG property, the INO rail bed as a recreational trail. So that's moving along and I hope to report more on that soon. This week I submitted a scoping document for the clean heating and cooling campaign for Caroline. So we're doing that as a second Clean Energy Communities action to try to promote this really great technology for our residents. So we want to get the word out. There's going to be a webinar on Thursday evening, June 15th at 7 p.m. that will be informational. So hope we get good attendance at that. We've just prepared the second quarter newsletter that's preparing, should go out later this week. And then my final item was that I sent a letter as a TCOG co-chair to Assembly Member Anna Kellis urging amendment or modification of open meetings law to allow remote attendance, a modification of open meetings law to allow public officials to attend public meetings remotely, without requiring that they invite the public to their location. So I'm hoping that will result in something. We need it now because we're in this transition to open meetings and we'll be discussing that later in the meeting. So that's my quick summary of my report, and I will entertain any questions anyone might have, any follow-up. And if there are none, I'll yield the floor. Okay, hearing none, I will turn it, is Dan Klein still with us? Turn it over to our county representative. You're muted, Dan.
Yes, hi, everybody.
Are you driving?
I'm not driving. I am in my car, though. I'm having a lot of tech issues tonight, including being locked out of the building. So I'm in my car.
Dedication right there.
Thanks. Okay, first thing I wanted to report is that the American Recovery Plan, the ARP money, is available for local governments to get, and the county just secured its allotment. Has the town of Caroline gotten theirs yet? Have you guys petitioned?
I have not heard, Dan, no.
Okay, I think you have to take action to get it. And it didn't seem like it was very hard. It seemed like it happened very quickly once we took the step to ask for it. So anyway, file that one away and work on that when you have a chance.
Okay,
And related to that, so the county got $10 million, I believe. Yes, $10 million. And we're going to get another 10 next year. And we were discussing it a lot internally to decide how to spend that money and how to even go about making a plan to spend that money. And so we decided to start by just asking the public their thoughts. It doesn't mean we're going to do what they ask. As you know, the government has a lot of limitations that the public's not aware of and its own priorities and bills to pay, et cetera, et cetera. But we're going to start by issuing a survey in a few days that the public is invited to weigh in on. They want to talk about what the priorities are for us spending that money. Also related to money, the county just did its annual override of the tax cap. We do this every year, whether or not we intend to go over the tax cap. We do not intend to go over it this year, but we do in advance, kind of as an insurance policy. And then later on, if we don't override, then we just withdraw the resolution after the budget's done. I am really happy to report to you that the forest policy that I've been working on for a number of years for the county forest, that I have been to this town board before you several times about it, finally got to a vote before the full legislature, and the policy passed as I had asked for it to be passed. So essentially we're going to leave the forest alone. That's really the simplest way to say it. And I want to mention this other thing. I really went back and forth about whether I wanted to mention it, and I'm truly not saying it to create drama. There's no action I really want the town board to take, but I'm bringing it up because some things got said in public about the Caroline Town Board and about the process. So I'm just going to mention it. You can ask questions, but like I say, I'm not asking you to do anything. In fact, I prefer you don't do anything. So part of the resolution I wrote for the county quoted the Town of Caroline resolution that you passed February of 2020. And believe it or not, that was very controversial. People really tried hard to change that and eliminate part of the quote of what you said in there. And afterwards, one of my fellow legislators said that she said that I, Dan Klein, fed the Caroline Town Board information, and also that that the resolution was a little deceptive because I talked about that a large portion of the forest is in the town of Caroline, but really it's only about 18%, something like that. It's 100 acres that's in the town of Caroline. And then afterwards, I did speak with this legislator, and they apologized actually for the remarks that they made about the town of Caroline and the process. So I just want to let you know, because these things got said in public, they're part of the record, but then this person apologized to me privately. So I just wanted you to know all that. I hope that doesn't feel like drama. I don't want it to be drama. I don't want you to do anything about it, but since it was on the record at the county, I thought you should know that these things.
Okay. Thanks, Dan.
I appreciate that, Dan. As you can see, we have our own drama.
Yes, yes, I see.
And as the person who wrote that resolution back when that actually resulted was as a result of my going to county meetings and studying the data and consulting local citizens. And we had a town meeting about it, tweaked it as a result of local feedback. So that's just the process that we went through.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Yeah.
Last thing I just want to mention is It's about the broadband committee and the broadband study. And Mark, I did talk to you about this last week, but I didn't check in with you about whether you want to do this at this meeting or not. I could report very briefly on what's going on. It's up to you.
Yeah, Dan, it would be great if you wanted to update us on it.
Okay.
Is that, yeah,
Yeah, it'll be
great.
very brief. So as you remember, the county funded a broadband study as part of our budget at the end of last year. And the town of Caroline, along with a number of other towns in the county, chipped in $5,000 apiece to support that study. The study just got underway, I don't know, maybe a month ago, 6 weeks ago, something like that. And it's supposed to be done in August. So it's actually going to move faster than I thought it would be. I don't have a lot to report about the content, except to say there was a little bit of a controversy, and I want you to be aware of this. The consultant that's doing the study is gathering information from a number of the broadband providers in this area. And they're doing so with the understanding that that information is proprietary and confidential. This is really common. Businesses only share information if they believe it's not going to be released to the public. And at the broadband meeting, there were several members of the committee who felt uncomfortable with that idea that this information could be confidential and that they wouldn't be able to share it out. So I just wanted you to know that part of it. There was a special meeting about this very issue, just about the confidentiality part. And some of the towns are considering taking back their $5,000 contributions. And it's not really a big deal if they do that. If they feel, if they or you feel uncomfortable about the process, then you should definitely weigh in soon. But aside from that little sideshow, the study is underway and is going to move quickly. And I just want to remind you that the goal is to provide broadband access to every house in Tompkins County. And that's my report.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dan.
Dan, with the survey you mentioned, how and when and where can people fill that out?
It's going to be released June 14th, but I don't have the specifics yet about how one accesses it. I know we'll be doing press releases and social media and such. So I'm pretty sure you'll hear about it, but if you don't, let me know and I'll make sure you get the info.
Thank you.
So I saw a message, chat message from Will Lawrence, who's our representative, who just said she would like to speak. So Will, do you want to speak up now?
Yeah, I appreciate Dan's summary. The meeting was Thursday, right? And I was unexpectedly out of town and trying to reach Mark to get a chance to talk to him before tonight's meeting, and it just didn't work out. What I want to add is there are other issues around the broadband study, but I wanted to have a chance to talk to Mark. But I was leading up to the formation of the broadband committee, and I think there's quite a few aspects to that study that need clarification. And Dan, I appreciate your response to my inquiries about the overall big picture purpose of the study, but I think there's still a couple of problems with it, and I'd like to, understand what's the broadening that understanding about why the county's going about it the way they're going about it.
Why the town is?
And that's what I wanted to say.
No, the county.
The county, yeah.
No,
okay.
why the county is.
Right, okay, so you're saying, let's have a follow-up conversation about that, Will, is that right?
Yes, please.
So, and I do know that Nick Helmholt, who is the point person for the county, has shared a sort of a document that describes how they're going about it. And so I think you probably know more about it than I do. So I'd be happy to talk with you later about it. Does that sound good?
Around process and what's appropriate process in this situation. That's all.
Yeah,
I don't think that just going to Nick is the answer. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. Great, so that sounds good. Thank you, Will. So let's follow up, okay? Great. Well, I'm gonna have to turn a light on. Okay, great. So thank you. Dan, have you completed your report? I just want to be sure.
I have, thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, and thank you, Will. Oh, that's wonderful. So thank you. So Highway Superintendent, Bob, are you here?
I am. I'll make mine pretty quick. Barry and myself, with the crew and the county crew, have been working on our stream bank project on Central Chapel Road. Actually, everything went real good. We put it to the test last night. Project's not completed yet, but it held up wonderfully. With the storm last night, we'll be working on some damages probably for a few days. And we'll probably have a couple town roads that will be closed for a short period of time, hopefully, but Leonard Road took a serious beating in that storm, so that'll be closed for a little bit, as well as parts of Bald Hill. Other than that, I've been working with John to get a few documents answered for the Highway Barn project. And I think that is about it for me.
Great. Thank you, Bob.
You're welcome.
Great, okay, cool.
I've got one too, Mark.
Okay, so Jesse.
I was just gonna report on the fees collected in the clerk's office in May. And that was 1 marriage license, 43 dog licenses, 1 fishing license, 12 building permits. Total fees collected were $2,685, less $103.12 in non-local revenues. And I gave a check number 243 to the supervisor on June 1st in the amount of $2,581.88. That's it for me.
Great, thank you, Jesse. My computer battery's low, I'll be right back. Cal's taking over. Okay.
Well,
Anyone else have any reports?
yeah. Anyone else have any other reports?
Actually, one quick one for me, Cal, and this kind of involves me and Jesse. We had talked about the Party for Less. Just wanted to bring that up. If there was any other, conversation that needed to be had about that moving forward.
Why don't you fill them in, Bob, on what?
Okay. So as we had talked in previous meetings about celebrating Les being at the town for 50+ years. We have Cal's gotten the watch, and we'd like to present it to Les at a informal party July 15th. Little luncheon. We will be sending out some invitations. Just trying to work out the details of it now, but that would be the date. So, did you have anything to add to that, Jesse?
What day of the week is that?
It's a Thursday, right, Bob?
Yes. All right, I'm good. I just wanted to bring it to everybody's attention.
Thanks.
Thanks.
That's good. That's good. Thank you, Bob. So does anybody else have any reports? they want?
I can report on the zoning commission met on Tuesday, this past Tuesday. And the next meeting will be in 2 weeks, which will make it June 22nd at 7:30 p.m. The commission met with the planner who did a first independent tour of the town. Apparently there was some questions or rumors going around about that tour in the town. And I just want to clarify that the planner came to the town on her own initiative and toured the town widely to get a sense of the town, to get a visual of the town. So this was not a public event. It was a fact-finding event for the planner who's been hired by the zoning commission. At Tuesday's meeting, things are actually moving well. So the planner had already drafted a statement of purpose, which is the first thing that you have to introduce a zoning law. And the zoning commission was able to spend most of the evening working through that and is almost through the language of that. So following that, then they will begin to look at maps in the town, and what they're doing now is for the beginning of any zoning law, you have to have a conceptual purpose which grounds the rest of the law, and it's pretty much coded and tied into our comprehensive plan. So there's just a lot of consistency there. So things at this very, very early stage seem to be moving well. The planner has provided a game plan for how they intend to move forward, and their plan and recommendation is that we'll hold all of the zoning commission meetings are open to the public, by the way, but they'll hold a public hearing or information session. I don't know how it will be structured. I believe after they have the first idea of a rudimentary map to share with the public to then get feedback. And my understanding is that there are going to be a number of these public sessions as things progress. So
Hey,
that's,
Tom.
yes.
Just a quick question. A resident came into the clerk's office today and that attended the zoning meeting and said that the planner was referring to this plan that she had put together. Do you know if that is going to be on the town website? Is that for the public's view as well, or just the zoning commission?
I mean, I don't know why not. What the planner was referring to was her proposal, the proposal that she provided to the town in the search process. I don't see any reason why that can't be
Okay, all right.
posted. It makes sense. I mean, it just lays out their process.
Okay, thank you.
It's a very neutral document, so there's absolutely no reason, as far as I'm concerned, unless Jean, who's chair of that zoning commission, has other ideas.
Okay.
Right, and I think it'd be good for generating public discussion, so be nice that way.
Thank you, Tim, and thank you, zoning commission.
Yeah. Great. This is the middle of committee updates, right?
Yeah.
We're done.
Any other updates?
I think we're pretty much done.
Pretty much
Just
done.
a question, Mark.
Yeah.
And it's not anything that needs an immediate response, but It feels like it's been a while since we've seen a report from Code, and I wondered if we could request that.
Sure. I think he provided one last month, but yeah, maybe what happened is, I think it showed up in the correspondence folder. But it did, I don't know if I don't know if I emailed it to you or not, but, anyway. But yeah, I'll mention that, so.
Yeah, I just emailed you about that myself, Mark, so I'd like to see it also.
Great. That's a good point. I will point out that Corey's finished his trainings and he took his exam. So he's moving right along.
That's good.
And Mark, I think it's probably in the cycle where it's time for us to have another follow-up meeting with him. I think we're doing this quarterly.
Yeah, good point. I was going to mention that later too. So I agree. It's time for that.
Do you want to mention that? About the historians asked to purchase those two software things.
Oh,
Weren't
okay.
gonna talk
Did
to the
we
board
get that
about
invoice yet or not? So
I don't think so.
I can do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I will do that. So Jesse just pointed out that the historians made a request to purchase subscriptions to Ancestry and newspapers.com. So it's apparently a historical archive of some kind.
Right.
Is that right?
And it's part of their, it'll be used, you know, and it's part
For
of
the
their
research.
budget lines for
Yeah,
research.
right.
Yeah.
So just thought I'd mention it, and certainly seems appropriate to me. So
For those of you who follow the Facebook page of the town history Facebook page, this is the most vibrant and participatory activity that I've seen in the town in a long time. So I think that this is great. And I really recommend you joining it if you haven't already done it. It's pretty fascinating.
yeah,
Yeah, I
you-
agree with that.
yeah, you steered me to it, Tim, and I was amazed. It was fantastic. Great. Okay. Thanks. I think there are no reservations about that. All right, let's move on to the first business item of the evening. So the discussion of the highway equipment planning and the proposal for a new loader. And I think Bob and I both shared spreadsheets that I think showed that we have funds for that loader purchase that for also include the 1-ton purchase for this year as well. So I'll open it up for board discussion.
I'll just mention that Bobby and I had a good chat the other day about this, and I think that given the fact that the funds are ready and that they're there and that it's part of the process, I'm personally ready to move ahead with this, with the caveat, however, that I think that now is the time for us after this, however, to stop and develop a really concise and comprehensive replacement plan, so that we have all of our ducks in the row, and Bobby can add anything about this, but I think he's in agreement. And I think I understood it properly, Bobby, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but you seem to be open also to the possibility of having a committee assist you in doing this, since it's such a complicated thing.
Yeah, after we talked the other day, I would say that I don't think it could be tackled by one person. It's a pretty big task. So yeah, I'd be open, to help with that.
Great.
That's
That
great.
sounds good.
I echo Tim's thoughts almost verbatim. I agree.
So can I make a resolution that we give
So, yeah,
the council or the highway superintendent to go ahead and sign for this loader?
you want to offer that resolution?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Could you hear that? Can anybody else hear that? We have a really good microphone here, a good test. So
I heard
Kelso,
it.
did anybody second that?
In a second, I'll second it.
Catherine seconded it. Discussion. So I concur with what Tim and John said. And I also think that, you know, this is, so we've also, with this installment purchase that just started for the snowplow, you know, that freed up some space for these equipment needs. And I think we're really well positioned now to begin, so we can budget and begin accruing resources to make, you know, to purchase equipment as we need it and establish I think the highway equipment capital group or whatever, one of the tasks will be to come up with a good rotation cycle. But right now we're well positioned to begin a period of resource accrual for that purchasing cycle so that we can move back away from financing if possible. So that's my goal. And also I think if we integrate into our capital planning, keeping track of equipment repair costs over time, so we can see that in real time. So I think that would be a good part of that. I just wanted to toss that out for future thinking along with this. Any other thoughts before we vote? Otherwise, I'm going to call for a vote.
Second.
Okay, we got 2 seconds now. Okay, so
That's what second means.
all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, great. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
Yeah, great. I will offer a resolution to, this is a cleanup resolution. So just to be more specific, so I'll offer a resolution to contract with Community Planning and Environmental Associates for planning support to the Zoning Commission. Whereas Nan Zolzenberg of CP and EA has been recommended by the Planning Search Committee to support the Zoning Commission's work because of her experience with planning for rural towns. Excellent proposal with detailed schedule for drafting zoning regulations at a maximum cost of $34,875. Therefore, be it resolved that the Caroline Town Board authorizes the supervisor to sign a contract with Community Planning and Environmental Associates to support the town's planning initiative. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Cal. And any questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. So all in favor, say aye or
Aye.
Aye.
opposed? Great, thank you. The next item on the agenda is the discussion, a discussion of the planning board work now that they're anticipating the completion of the battery storage law. And so we, at last meeting, we talked about whether the remaining members of the planning board who aren't on the zoning commission, whether we would want to add them to the zoning commission or keep them as a separate body. And so I will open that discussion for anybody who would like to offer thoughts there. And I'll just say, I think there has been discussion, including, I know that Tim spoke with Jean, the chair of the zoning commission, and I spoke with Bill, and others spoke with Bill, the chair of the planning board. And I think what came out in the wash is that it makes sense to have the three members continue working separately, but it's sort of an ancillary body that could do related, do research and development of related items to the zoning commission's work. So that's my understanding of kind of where we would like to go with this.
Yep, I agree with that. I guess the only thing I would add is just to make sure that, and I've advocated for this before, that it is related, like really related, because there are lots of things that are important to the town that are not, I mean, as direct as possible. And we could refer back to, the brief discussion of Don Barber's email about design guidelines, for example, and site plan review and that whole discussion. I think that was like a perfect example of something that could, and in my view, should still be, worked on in parallel to the zoning commission, as opposed to, let's say, starting something new with critical environmental areas, as an example that's been thrown around.
Well, what's interesting, Catherine, is that's an area that the zoning commission is really keen for the planning board to tackle. So we had a discussion about this, and there were a few pressure points. That's one, and then the telecommunications law or plan also would end up being extremely helpful to the zoning commission. So they were extremely excited about being able to be in active dialogue with the planning board. And the zoning commission also has members of the planning board on it. So I think it'll work out really, really well. And I think that from my understanding from Bill, is that the planning board is keen to take what am I trying to say? We've had a long night already.
A serious look.
To take the cue from the zoning commission in terms of priorities.
Yeah.
My recollection is when we started looking at the new body, that part of the reason we didn't put it all in the planning board was in part that they just finished the comprehensive plan and we didn't necessarily want to burn everybody out, which I think was a good decision and a kind decision. My own feeling is I think we empower them to figure this, articulate, you're right, Tim, it's getting late, put it together in a way that makes sense to them. So my feeling is if there are people from the planning board that want to participate and sit in, I don't see any reason to tell them you can't do it. Nor do I think we should say everybody has to do it, right? And, I think the flow of the work is what's important, and that the two bodies are communicating, because obviously their work is absolutely tied together. And, if there's a point where there's some clarity needed about, does this really fit more here or here? That's something, Tim as liaison or us as a body could perhaps give guidance on.
Yeah.
But so what that's worth.
Yeah, I think that's, and my sense and understanding from talking with Bill Podolka is he's been very deliberate and communicative with the other two members, Jonathan and Will. Jonathan's not actually a member yet until a few moments from now, but he's talked with them as he's deliberated this. So I think they're really in sync on this. So if that addresses part of your point. Any other thoughts? So I think we're good. We don't really, I'm not going to offer resolution here because we're going to just keep things going as they are. And I think there's a very clear understanding with the planning board and the zoning commission. So great. Hearing nothing else, now I will offer a resolution to appoint Jonathan Comstock to the planning board. Do I have a second?
Second.
I think Cal actually beat you to it, John. But
that's okay.
You're good with that. Okay, good. So any discussion? Is Jonathan here tonight?
No.
No, okay. If he was, I would see if he wanted to speak, but Jonathan became involved with the planning board work on the solar siting law because of his experience with renewables and solar. And then during that work, he expressed to Bill that he was interested in joining the planning board. So he has as you know, a lot of experience as a volunteer for the town, especially with Energy Independent Caroline, and he's been the Solar Tompkins chair for practically all of his adult life. So yeah. So anyway, if no other questions or concerns, I'll call for a vote for Jonathan. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Great. Thanks, everybody. And I'll offer a resolution to appoint Don Barber to the local agriculture committee.
Second that.
Cal got it again. And so this is Don here tonight?
No.
No? Okay. I wanted to ask him if he has any experience with local government, but
I was going to
so-
ask if he had any experience with agriculture.
yeah.
Obviously, I'm kidding.
That too. So, but anyway, I think we all know Don pretty well, and he's very enthusiastic about farming, and has a small, vigorous local farm, and is interested in promoting that. He will be faced with leadership and attendance challenges right off the bat, because he's the only member of the committee after we vote for this, but I think that's okay, and he can probably help spread the word to other people.
I hope he shows up for the meeting.
Yeah, I hope so. All right.
Might have a,
Now that we have I know we need to vote on this, but now that we will have a member, do we need I have volunteered in the past, but do we need an official liaison from the board to this committee? And if so, I would like to do that.
That would be great. Are you, and you said you want to do that, Catherine?
Mm-hmm.
That's great. Yeah, so I'll go ahead and call for a vote to appoint Don, and then we can do that by a separate resolution. So all in favor?
aye.
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 Opposed? And I will offer a quick resolution to appoint Catherine Goldberg as the liaison to the newly formed local agriculture committee.
Second.
Seconded by John. Any further discussions or reservations?
I have a lot of reservations.
Great, okay, call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thanks, Catherine.
Yep. Don and I will have to have a meeting.
There you go.
Let's see, so that one,
No transfers?
yes, I do. I'm gonna offer those now. So I will offer the following transfers that were sent out this afternoon. Resolve, the Caroline Town Board makes the following 2021 budget transfers, 2,000 from A 1990.4 contingency to A 1440.405 engineering creeks, $300 from A 1620.4 town hall general to A 1620.412 town hall improvements, and $2,000 from a 1220.4 supervisor contractual to a 1670.4 print mail contractual. And finally, $1,000 from a 1990.4 contingency to a 1910.4 unallocated insurance. So do I have a second?
Sure, I'll second that.
Cal seconded it. Any questions about those transfers? This is kind of a little bit of cleanup from some lingering accounting line needed tweaks, but great. So all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Great, thank you. All done there. I'll offer a resolution to pay the town bills. in the amounts of $11,840.16 for the general fund, $70,341.82 for the highway fund, and $228.21 for the streetlight fund. Seconded by John. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Let's see, there are, let's see, a couple of items that I wanted to mention. Catherine wanted to have a brief discussion about speed limits. And then Emily had asked about, it started with about, you know, having events on the town calendar that are in the old mill, and but anyway, it sort of evolved into, I'm wondering if it, and I didn't want to do that to sort of complicate the situation there. I didn't think that would be a good move, but it does occur to me that the old mill houses a lot of community events, and we could put a link to the old mill under something like our resources tab. And this is kind of a thing that we haven't had before, but I kind of think it would be okay. I think it might be useful to people, and I wanted to get some feedback. I think I see an approving head nod by John, but I'm not sure.
I'm processing it. I want to make sure I processed it correctly. So Emily's proposing that town events go in the old mill, or the other way
No.
around?
My proposal is just that, no, that's not the proposal.
Okay,
The proposal would be just so that since the town website is for Town of Caroline things
right.
and not necessarily community events, there could, in order to provide people that resource, you know, we could have a link under resources to the Old Mill Community Newsletter that would
I think that
provide.
makes sense.
Seems okay, right?
That seems okay to me, sure.
Sure, and since we support it anyway, it's just logical.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
that sounds good.
I don't know how the website works or who, but I might suggest having it be its own tab that just says Old Mill. So that
Sure,
people
it could,
can go to resources and,
a tab up at the top.
yeah. Just
Yeah, maybe we could do that. I don't know if we're tabbed out. We might be tabbed out up there. But if we can, we could do that.
Could also go under, I think there's an About tab. I don't have it in front of me, but it could also probably logically rest there if we needed it to.
Where is that, John?
I think, I don't have the page in front of me, so maybe I'm having a fake memory here, but I think there's an About tab.
I think it's the first tab, no?
Right, yeah. And so if there is, then it could probably go under there if we didn't have room on top or didn't want to put it there.
Okay, super. That's
Just
good.
where would people logically look if it weren't in the top menu?
Yeah,
I mean, no, I guess definitely not for right now, because I know, but I guess would also suggest just putting a pin in a conversation at some time, at some future date about our website.
Yeah, I was noticing it. No, I'm glad you said that. I noticed it needs some updating. And if it's helpful, I'm happy to jump in and assist if needed. I know Catherine's not on it, and we really should have her on it as an example, but
okay, so,
under council members, Irene is still listed.
oh, okay.
I didn't even know that. I was just talking about like the whole navigation of the page and things.
You need to be more narcissistic, Catherine.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was doing it for Catherine, apparently. We need Catherine on there.
I think the same goes for the zoning commission and probably the updated planning board. We should just look at all the committees and make sure they're up to date.
get them up to date. Yeah, that's a great idea. And if you, I will also say, if you do have specific suggestions, then just shoot an email to Velvet and copy me or Jesse or somebody, but, and then, then we'll have a tangible thing, and Velvet will have a tangible thing that she can attack. But I will, we will look at all the committees and update those and make sure. So thank you for the heads up. But yeah.
And yeah, and if you look, you'll notice that I think it was ever since I joined the board, which has now been quite some time, the listing for board members isn't consistent. So there had been a real consistent listing for board members with contact information, et cetera. And then mine is virtually nothing. And so I think we should just try to make it all consistent.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's under when you go to board member, council members?
Yep.
Okay. Yep, okay.
Maybe I have a brief question. I know it's late already, but who manages who takes care of our website? I should know this.
So Velvet is the webmaster. Is that your question?
I guess so. Yeah, I mean, it's hosted somewhere, and then Velvet has the access to adding.
Yeah.
content.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Good. Okay. Great. So yeah, a couple other things. So Catherine, you wanted to briefly address speed limits. I don't know. Do we want to let me know where you want to take that? We could set it up for a deeper discussion or dive next month, or go for it.
It's really brief, honestly. Just a concern from various citizens who live in the hamlet had raised the issue of speed in the hamlet to me, and then I happen to have been there, like like the Brookton's Market, from like the post office basically through Brookton's Market past like Lounsbury, and in fact, I experienced exactly what was described, which is just really kind of surprising and frequent high rate of speed through there.
Okay, so you're talking about violation of existing speed
Well,
limit.
definite violation given, because it's 35, right?
Yeah.
Right, so definite violation for sure. And yeah, so yeah, I guess violation of the current posted speed. And I just don't know. I'm glad, Bobby, that you're still here. I don't know what the options are for, I mean, obviously there's zero enforcement. So that's the one thing. I mean, one thing that was asked of me as the board member was like,
yeah,
can the sheriff come out? Like, can like a couple tickets and people will stop doing that? But I don't know what the other options are. There have been discussion of like the signs that say you're going this speed, all
yeah.
that.
So I'll just say we did purchase this sign. So we have a Your Speed Is sign.
Oh.
So I don't think it's ready to roll, but I don't know if Bobby's on the meeting still or not, but is she? So I don't know if.
Yeah, a couple things with it. It is getting bad and it's everywhere. It's the hard part is the enforceable part.
Exactly.
And maybe just a simple phone call to the sheriff's department that says, hey, this is happening a lot. Could you just even having somebody there will help out. And once they see somebody there for a couple of days, changes it a lot. I mean, the state is doing it with highway departments, on 81. They have, troopers in hard hats that look like highway guys and catch a lot of people that way. So
wow.
A sting operation, yes.
Yeah. I mean, and the other hard part is it is a county road. So, as far as our sign and putting our sign on the county road, not that it's impossible, but the county also does have their own sign too. So,
okay.
And maybe I can talk with someone at the county, maybe they'll even bring a message board or something that just says, you know, keep an eye on your speed or
Yeah.
something, just so we can put a little reminder out. But it is everywhere. You know, the last couple days have been crazy as far as, you know, people driving through just our work sites.
Mhm.
You would think that people would see a big piece of equipment in the road and stop, but I mean, stop would be nice. It would be nice just to get them to slow down a little bit, but
Bob and Catherine, my experience in the past, a couple times, is just a call to the sheriff's department, and the officer that's answering the phone puts it on the daily sheet. They have a specific name for it, but the daily sheet for, you know, the next day. And, you know, they've been very receptive to, you know, hey, you know, thanks for calling, and we'll put it on, you know, hey, maybe not hey, maybe, but hey, we'll have somebody out there checking, you know. They've been very receptive to just, you know, that call that says, we got a problem out here, and, you know, just, yeah.
Well, the county did put a "Your Speed Is" sign out on that stretch of road a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And it would be great if, I think, those signs help me, you know, when I'm going too fast, I see it flashing, you know, I'm over. So, yeah.
And there's plenty of other squeaky wheels around, and we just gotta make sure we're one too.
Okay. And should it be like, should I call as the board member or have the people who live there call, or both, or?
In the past, the times I've done it, I've just called, I'm a Town of Caroline board member, and citizens have been expressing concern about the speed on Covington Road.
Okay.
And, you know, when they say they haven't seen a officer out there, haven't seen any presence, and could you kind of, yep, you know, I mean, they're busy, they're spread thin, and
I would think the more people that called, the better
Yeah.
chance of
Y-
getting
yeah.
someone out,
Okay. Great.
sooner rather than later.
so if you can call in your official capacity as well as tell them to call, and
Okay.
yeah, pass the
then-
word.
So the county, so Brooktondale Road is a county road, Bob, but then Valley Road, or does that stay Brooktondale Road? Like Swimming Hole Road, is that our road or county road?
County road.
That's
Yeah,
all
the
county.
Swimming Hole Road is a county road. Lounsbury is a county road. You know, and it's a county road all the way out to 76 Road. So that whole big stretch there, but I can make a few phone calls and see if I can make something happen, or
Cool, thanks, yeah. A lot of people walking now with like, if we could do it before like summer, you know, and walking to the market and all that stuff, like there's a lot of kids on bikes and it's like crazy.
Great, okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of new motorcycles that just need to be opened up because they've been sitting in the garage all winter, and go by our place, I swear they're going 100 miles an hour.
Great, okay. Cool.
Anyway,
Yeah, so really, I mean,
I think the sheriff and the state police, I think they kind of intermesh on speed enforcement to a degree.
yeah, I don't know. Great, okay.
They kind of cover for each other, it seems.
Mhm.
Maybe not on a county road, maybe that's just on state roads, I don't know, but just some calls, the more the better.
Great. So I see I haven't reviewed the June 1 minutes of the public hearing and the agenda meeting. So we should do that now. Unless, if we're done with that discussion, which I think we are. Yep. Any feedback on those?
Our minutes are always just so extraordinarily excellent.
Thank you, Tim. Jesse likes that. And it's true. Great. So hearing none, I will offer approval of the public hearing and agenda meeting minutes. So great. Thanks, Jesse. Great. Thank you. All right. If there's nothing else, I will.
Mark, you forgot to talk about in-person attendance.
Oh, gosh, how did I get past that? And I forgot. Yeah. Thank you. So, and I think that's, yeah, really important discussion. So I open the discussion of return to in-person attendance. Tonight's meeting is kind of, you know, relevant because we're testing out this new system and getting used to it. It is kind of something to get a little bit used to. And I think the challenges that maybe Jesse and I see are, this works fine for, you know, some board members are remote, some are in person. And I expect that to be allowed for a good while longer. But we are now permitted to hold in-person meetings. So the question for us is, if we want to, you know, when we want to move forward to do that, how to do it in a way that we all feel really good about. So, and we have had some discussions. I guess I'll just toss one out as a suggestion, but I'm not committed to any particular. I mean, one thing we'd do as a conservative approach is say that anybody that wishes to come in person would follow distancing and face mask, and we would have designated places in here that would show where 6 feet spacing is or whatever. So that would be one way to do it. And it, as you know, I mean, we just don't have a huge seating section here. So we'll probably, maybe what we could, no, we can't do that. So, but we would have to designate spots, which benches and where. And I think we'd only want to use two at the most out of the 3 benches, because if you use benches back to back, then people are automatically breathing right down the necks of somebody in front of them. So I wouldn't be good with that. So.
Mark, have you marked spot, but you haven't marked them yet? We need to just like mark, just tape off.
Yeah, Velvet made some, what are they made out of? They're like vinyl stickers to put on. So we have those all ready to go, and we could do it in 5 minutes.
Right. So how many people does that allow in?
I think the first, so it depends on how we do it. So discussing it briefly with Tim today, he thought maybe it wasn't a good idea to have people in the first bench here. But then that would mean we would just use the second bench, and maybe 4 or 5 people would fit there. And then maybe 3 people on each side and chairs spaced out. So that would be about 10 or 11 people. If we use the first bench and the last bench, which was my original thought, that would be a few more. And, you know, based on our typical in-person attendance, this is not a big deal. That's more than covers it.
Right.
So
that was kind of my point.
Yeah.
Mark, I can't remember, not having been in the space now for so long. Is there room to pull the table back farther, closer to the justice thing?
Yeah.
Yes.
Go back.
To create more space?
There would be. I think there is. I'd say about 2 feet.
So maybe you could use I mean, that might allow for the first bench to be used. It just depends also on how many of us are there in person, because we're not all going to fit around the table like we used to.
Right. We're going to have to space out in some manner. Yep.
We could suggest that the supervisors sit on the dais up on top to run the meeting properly.
No.
Great. That's not good meeting process, Tim.
That was a joke.
Okay.
So it seems like we can do it. I mean, I guess unless there's some other detailed discussion that I'm missing, like we can do it. We can start it next meeting, however comfortable people are with, board members don't have to come, public doesn't have to come. People who want to come can come. If it exceeds 11 people or whatever it is, then that's the attendance and people have to go away.
Right.
Like, I don't know, am I making it too simple?
I agree with that. That was my next question about timeline. I mean, I think based on the way things are going and vaccination rates are pretty high. And, I think with this kind of a policy, I think I'd be comfortable with that. In the summertime, we should be able to keep the doors open. This is what I would try to do. So I'd be happy to do that at the July agenda meeting. We could give it a try.
Sounds good to me. There's going to be another question about committees, Mark. I know the zoning commission would really like to meet as much in person as possible, especially to be able to look at shared documents. So would our committees then be able to use the town hall and use the same AV system in order to do their work?
Yes, absolutely. They would.
And I guess one thing I did miss, we are requiring masking though, right?
That was what I proposed, requiring masking, and we're asking people to maintain 6-foot distancing whenever possible, plus masking. So that's what my proposal would be. That sounds.
I might even take away the wherever possible, like we are distancing or else we are not in the building.
Right, right. Yeah.
Sounds like a plan.
It sounds like a plan. Any other thoughts or concerns about that? And this plan does give everybody the latitude to attend remotely. So I think I'm pretty comfortable with this. Okay.
One observation from those of us in the peanut gallery, we can hear incredibly well, but we kind of need binoculars to see you guys.
Oh, really? Can you try a little bit of an adjustment on the camera?
Yeah, I think they're meeting in Richford.
That means you can have some really strong nonverbals and nobody would know.
That's good.
That's a little better.
A little better.
Yeah.
Well, the three of you are photogenic. I know this one isn't.
Yeah, I mean, it is great when people speak. We're getting a it's like watching a football game at Uncle Joe's or something. You're really bigger than life.
It's kind of horrifying.
Right. I don't want to be that big.
That means you saw some of my expressions from earlier in the evening.
Yeah, we can see you real well.
Okay. So, I think we have a plan, right? Everybody good with that?
Masking and 6 feet.
Say that again.
Masking and 6 feet.
Yep. Masking and 6 feet.
When's the agenda meeting? This will be for the July.
July agenda meeting, whenever that is.
Windows open, good air circulation, as good as practical.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think a couple window fans wouldn't be a bad idea, but.
I know there was a stand-up fan we had somewhere.
Yeah.
So if we can put that in a doorway.
Yep.
These fans can be going.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's
just pushed down, but something to move.
Yeah, to move
Just
it
to
out.
keep the air exchange is the word we use with.
Well, we'll keep the
livestock.
fan on the geothermal going.
Yep,
So that'll
yep.
do it.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
But just air exchange, not air,
Good.
not air circulation, but air exchange.
Right. So just briefly, I will again formally offer a response to the petition that was submitted. I did put that on the agenda. I did send out to you the language of the from New York State Public Officers Law, Article 7, which is open meetings law. And that describes the intention of open meetings is for the public to be able to come and observe the work of the board. And there's, you know, when people speak to us, that's a privilege we confer upon them at our board meetings, but it's not the purpose of in-person meetings. So I think that's an important point. And I pointed out in my newsletter that I shared with you that it actually is better to communicate with us in other ways in advance so that we can actually take those comments seriously and you know, research them or address them. So I think people are aware of the different ways that they can communicate with any or all of us. And so I would hope it's maybe not as exciting as addressing us in person, but if people do have important things to bring forward, we welcome that and are providing as many avenues as we can possibly do for that. So, and we have been, over the past year, like everyone else, we've been conducting meetings and running the town hall as responsibly as possible and under the guidance of New York State and the health department to manage public health issues during the pandemic. So the other two items that were mentioned on the petition, and I don't know if they were really intended to be submitted or not, but one was the trail. Whoever drafted the petition was concerned that trail discussions were ongoing. They really have not been. I have been working for a long time with other supervisors and planners, as I mentioned earlier, on an easement agreement with NYSEG for use of the NYSEG property as a recreational trail. So that has been going, and I will update you as soon as we know more, and I'm fingers crossed that will be fairly soon. And then the other the other item was that we should be taking action on Dollar General, which was kind of contradictory to the first item, but nevertheless, it's not really before us. It's nothing the board is dealing with now. So those, if anybody else has a comment or an observation or information they would like to add to that, that's all I have to say. So.
I would just like to add to thank the public and our citizens for their understanding and cooperation during this long period. It appears that Caroline has done really well in terms of virus spread. And I think a lot of that can be attributed to the care and attention that our citizens have given to responsible public meetings and open meetings. So I would just like to thank everybody. We know it's been really frustrating, but it seems to have worked.
Mm-hmm. Great. Yep. Thank you, Tim. I agree with that. Great. Okay. Thank you, everybody. So I will observe that it's 9:30 now. And if there are no other items to discuss, call for adjournment.
Second.
John got
Got that one in, Cal.
Yeah.
John got that one. Discussion?
It's that delay of,
Yeah.
you know, the signal going.
Okay,
Red buttons, man. It's getting competitive.
great. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for the meeting, and have a good evening. Meeting is
Good night,
hereby. Yeah.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.